Hola, homies. How's it going? Welcome to Tom's Hit Parade Live once again. Greetings, one and all. Welcome to Tom's Hit Parade Live. Yes, this is it. This is the big one, the year-end finale, even though it's already January of 2022. Yes, I am going to be this is the second of my two-part year-end spectacular-ish, in which today I talk about my 5 most disappointing albums of 2021, as well as my 30, yes, it was going to be 25, but I decided to make it 30 favorite studio albums of 2021. And in between those two lists, I'm going to throw in a couple of random mentions. I almost forgot to mention that I was going to do that. Anyway, hope you guys are doing great. I'm having a nice new year so far. And before I go any further, don't expect this video to have the cool rhythm and snappiness and pizzazz of, say, your ARTVs or your Spectrum Pulses or your who's the other one? Needle Drop. That's that guy, the melon. So don't expect that kind of professionalism, or even the snappiness and polish of, like, a K-Man Reviews or anything. This is me you're dealing with, okay? Hey Keegan, how's it going? So yes, it's going to be, it might be a little awkward. I might not have a whole lot to say about certain albums, just because, as I've mentioned before, sometimes you don't know why you love an album so much. You just love it, and that's the thing about art and music as an art form. Remember, it's just words escape you sometimes with its effect on you. So anyway, let's go ahead and start with, dig up my notes here, which are already dug up. I just have to click the little window. Talk about my least favorite albums of 2021. Get the unpleasant stuff out of the way first. Now, as I only have so much free time or time to devote to music listening, so I don't waste time listening to music that I think I won't like or that I know I'm not going to like. That's why I don't do a worst albums list. So this, my most disappointing albums, is as close as I come to such a thing. Now, usually this list is reserved for albums I actually bought, thinking I'd like them, of course, or I wouldn't have bought them. But there is one on this list that I just streamed that made this year's list. And that is actually number 5 on my list because I didn't buy it, so it was not quite as disappointing because I didn't invest any money in it. And number 5 on my list of most disappointing albums of the year is Music of the Spheres by Coldplay. Yes, I've really enjoyed Coldplay. They're not one of my favorite bands, but I have been motivated enough. I like them enough that I've been motivated to pick up every one of their albums, even up through, what was their last one? Everyday Life. Unfortunately, sad to say, that one kind of shrunk on me. It was a little unusual, so can you really blame me in a way? And yes, I eventually got rid of that one. It just shrunk on me too much, and so I decided, okay, I was going to listen to Music of the Spheres before I decided to pick it up. And I have enjoyed when Coldplay gets poppy, but this was just, it was just a little bit too out there. And some of the song ideas were either half-baked or just kind of weird. And plus the emojis as song titles thing, I've never, it may be a generational thing, I will admit, but yeah, that just seemed kind of silly and dopey and stupid. So yes, I decided to pass up on that one. Gave it 1 stream, maybe 2, or at least 1.5 streams, and I decided no, wasn't going to buy it. So yeah, it was kind of disappointing. Yeah, the first, in my opinion, the first real flop in Coldplay's discography. So that is number 5. Excuse me. Number 4 on my list of least favorite albums of the year was Frampton Forgets the Words by Peter Frampton. Yeah, I picked that one up. I have owned Frampton Comes Alive, his blockbuster live album from the 70s, for a while now, and he's a great artist. And I was actually just gifted this Christmas with a Frampton studio album from my man Noah. Shout out to Noah. So I decided, hey, go ahead and give this current contemporary Frampton a try. And this was actually instrumental versions of popular songs that Frampton decided to do. And yeah, gave it, I actually picked it up, bought it on CD, and gave it 2 or 3 listens, and I just could not connect to it. And I'm not sure what it was. I guess maybe Frampton's real charm lies in his the songs that he does vocally. So, yep, had to give that one the old heave-ho, and much to my disappointment. That's Boy, this is the most disappointing albums of the year. Number 3 on my list is January Flower by Matt Kearney. And the name is spelled like it sounds like Kearney, but it actually is pronounced Carney. And I've always had a little bit of an attachment to him because he actually grew up in the Eugene, Oregon area. So, or was he just born there? I can't remember. But yeah, he's kind of a local hero. Eventually made it big back in the early 2000s, or was it mid 2000s, with a couple of great studio albums. I actually have his first 3 or 4. Very, very good stuff. And he actually was one of the first pop artists, singer-songwriter pop artists that mixed hip-hop into it. It's now become much more of a thing, but he was one of the first that kind of added just a bit of a dose of hip-hop into his sound, at least that I can remember. I could be completely wrong about that. But anyway, yes, decided to pick up his latest album, January Flower, and I liked it. But yeah, same as all the albums on this list, just couldn't connect with it enough after 4 or 5 listens. It just was not for me. So yeah, I had to pass it up as well. Number 2 on my list was, it's probably the one that kind of hurt the most, I guess you'd say, my runner-up, or maybe in this case it's runner-down, for the most disappointing album of the year is Dreamers Are Waiting by Crowded House. I loved Crowded House's first 4 albums. I've got them all on CD. Absolutely love them. They're some of my favorites from that time period. But this was actually the second more recent album in a row. I'm not sure if they're consecutive albums, but the second one in a row that I could not connect with. And so, yeah, for some reason, I just had a feeling maybe this was the one that was going to, recapture my Crowded House fandom. But alas, as they say, just didn't work, unfortunately. Yeah, the songwriting just doesn't seem like what it used to be back then. Either that, or maybe, and this has kind of happened a couple of times recently, I've started having this thought, is maybe it's just the bands that I was into back then, the bands and the artists that I was into back then, I just wouldn't be into now if I had happened upon them for the first time now, if you understand what I mean. Maybe it's just my music tastes have changed enough that, those legacy favorites I'm going to hold on to, but if I'd come across them now, they wouldn't have the same impact. Maybe that's what it is, and I just don't know. But anyway, the unfortunate winner of my most disappointing album of 2021 is Thank You by Diana Ross. And yes, that one also hurt almost as much as Crowded House. But the reason it's number 1 is because I streamed it first, and I really, really liked it. And I bought the CD, and I liked it even more. But then the second time I listened to it on CD, it was like nothing. It's like it's probably the album that suffered the quickest drop-off in my liking it, I think, ever. Just for some reason, I just heard none of the likability and charm in that second CD listen that I had heard in the streaming and first CD listens. I don't know what it was. So yeah, it's just all the songs seemed kind of the same. And they kind of had the same message, all of them. There were a couple love songs in there, but most of them were kind of the feel-good anthems. Not that she's not still good at what she does. I don't think she's really lost a thing vocally. It's just the songs were just kind of lackluster. What can, I don't know how else to put it. So yeah, that was just, the sad, unfortunate outcome of the Diana Ross album. Yeah, that was the topper of my least favorite albums of 2021. Catch up on my comments here. Hey, Noah, how's it going? Yes, you will hear. Yeah, my favorite albums of the year is coming right up. Yes, I know. It seemed. Yeah, you're the only one who liked Music of the Spheres. It just. Well, not the only one. There were a couple of positive reviews out there, but not a lot. Sad to say. And I kind of thought, Keegan, I thought this one was going to hurt you, or you were not going to like the sound of me not liking Diana Ross. I know how much you liked it, so yeah. Sorry, but hey, not everybody can like the same things. That's what makes life interesting, isn't it? So let's go into, find the right note, water break first. Thank you all, by the way, for joining me. We're going to have fun. The fun has just started. And the fun, we're actually getting into the fun part. The first part was kind of disappointing. Talk about a couple of fringe favorites that I just thought deserved a little shout out. And as you've noticed with the 2 decades end of the decade spectacular issues that I've done, I've talked about my favorite holiday albums, compilations, and soundtracks of those decades. So I thought, going into it, starting with this year, I'd mention my favorite one of those albums, each type of album, from the current year. Some of these are going to be defaults because they are the only kind of their album that I bought this year. So when there's only one, it's not really a winner, but you know. But yeah, I just thought it would be fun, a fun little extra. First off is my favorite holiday album of the year. This was not a tough race because I only bought two. But yes, my favorite holiday album of the year is A Very Darren Christmas by Darren Criss. His charm is just absolutely overflowing on this album. So I think sometimes even people who don't necessarily like holiday albums, I think, would like this one just because of his charm and his likability, and just he does some great stuff on this album. One of my sister's favorite holiday songs, I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas, he covers, and it's just, you know, as all the other songs on here, it's charming as heck. So yeah. So, and this is coming from somebody who has never been able to really catch on to Glee or watch Glee. I actually do have, I don't know if you can see them, but up there I've got the first two seasons on DVD. Found them at a Goodwill store for $1 each. Just haven't cracked them open and started watching them yet. Anyway, this next one is actually not one of the categories that I talk about, as I mentioned in my decade lists. My favorite live album of the year. I don't buy very many live albums. Case in point, this one is winner by default. And it is Sarah Bareilles with her Amidst the Chaos Love. I wrote in my notes, Love at the Hollywood Bowl. No, it's Live at the Hollywood Bowl. Great stuff. She does the biggest song from each of her studio albums, as well as a lot of songs from Amidst the Chaos, since this is the tour that she recorded this album from. Great stuff. The chit-chat between songs, she, you know, I'm not a prude by any means, but she throws around the F word a few times here and there. So if you're looking for something that you could play in front of, you know, kids and family, you might not want to play this album if you're sensitive to them hearing four-letter words. But you know, for me, that doesn't take away any of the charm on this album. Yes, she does Brave, which is one of my favorite songs ever by any artist, as well as King of Anything. I love that song. And what's the other one? Oh, Love Song, of course, from her debut album, as well as all the great songs from. I don't think she does any songs that are, you know, covers, you know, that some artists throw covers by other artists into the mix. I don't think there's any of those here, but she does have a couple of guest artists on here. T-Bone Burnett, who I believe, if memory recalls, he produced her Amidst the Chaos studio album, as well as Rob Moose. I'm not sure who Rob Moose is, but and also Emily King guests on If I Can't Have You, and the Milk Carton Kids appear on Someone Who Loves Me. So it's a great live album. It's a 2-disc set, so you get twice the bang for your buck from that live album. So there you go. And now I have two left here, my favorite compilation and my favorite soundtrack. Well, let me do the compilation first, and we'll get that out of the way. My favorite compilation of the year is The Best by BTS. Never picked up a BTS CD until now, when I bought this 3 or 4 months ago. And I was kind of surprised. I, of course, love their song Dynamite. And this actually runs through Dynamite. It does not have Butter or any of the songs from their latest album on it. But I, of course, had only heard a few of their singles here and there. But I didn't realize how much R&B and hip-hop elements they have in their sound until I listened to their discography. So, and yes, I suppose I could have streamed it before I bought it, but I decided, what the heck? It was at House of Records, and House of Records does not get in very many imports, you know, without people actually having special ordered them first. So part of it was I didn't want this thing to sit there and for them to sink their money into something that nobody was going to buy. So that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Fortunately, very fortunately, I am one of those people who can splurge on CDs like that. And again, this is a 2-disc set, so good stuff. And my final Fringe album of the year is, this one's kind of cheating. I call it my favorite soundtrack of the year, even though it is also a compilation. I talked about it about a month ago or so in my first and thus far only Spotlight CD of the week. It is The Best of Bond, James Bond. Yes, a 2-disc set. of the themes from every single one of the James Bond movies. And this is the first time in history, thanks to the pandemic and the delay of the latest film, No Time to Die, they were able to include Billie Eilish's theme on this album. So for the first time, it has been up to date to the moment that a James Bond film came out in the theaters. So that's a distinction for this album. But yes, lots of great stuff on here. Of course, I am, being an 80s kid, I'm partial to the 80s James Bond themes. Duran Duran, A View to a Kill, that my favorite James Bond theme, as if you couldn't guess. And of course, Paul McCartney and Wings. They kind of, as soon as they put out Live and Let Die, that was kind of the prototype, the blueprint for James Bond themes going forward with those orchestral strings and stuff. So yeah. Suffice to say, a great choice and something I was very, very happy to spend my money on. So there you have it for my Fringe albums of the year. And let's prep for the main event. Are you guys ready? Oh, I'm already 15 minutes in. So catch up on the comments here. Now, Noah, be nice to Shyok. Yes, I'll have to read up on these comments at some point. Oh, I suppose maybe I should have picked a Little Mix compilation, but hey, it's my loss. Let's put it that way, okay? By the way, Shyok, glad you could join us. I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Shyok and I go way back. Anyway, on to my favorite albums of 2021. I'm giving you a list of 6 honorable mentions first. I like to do 20% of my actual ranked list. I do as honorable mentions. So that makes 6. Do the math. A few things to bear in mind with any list you'll see on my channel. Here's the boilerplate stuff. Let's get this out of the way first. I call this list My Favorites because it's exactly that. The stuff that I found myself listening to, connecting with, and personally enjoying the most. I'm a music fan, not a music critic. Also, some things I probably would have liked will invariably be left off this list simply because I didn't have the time to listen to them or because they completely slipped under my radar and I don't even know that they're out there. I should also mention that I reserve my favorite albums list for titles that I enjoyed enough and was able to purchase on physical format. Maybe an unfair limitation, but I've always connected more with the music when I'm able to own a recording of it. I can and do stream, but yeah, I can only connect with the music so much, and I feel I need to. It's also my love of props, holding something up to the camera to show. And bear in mind that the further away from number 1 we get on this list, the less exact its ranking is meant to be taken. After all, favorites lists are an art and not a science, and depend greatly on the mood of their makers at the time they're made. So you can disagree with this list, but you can't call it wrong. So let's go ahead and get on with the honorable mentions. Actually, there is an exception in case of the honorable mentions to what I was just saying about albums that I cannot buy on physical format. One of my honorable mentions is Montero by Lil Nas X. It would definitely have been well within the ranks, the actual ranked list, if I'd been able to pick it up on LP. I'm probably going to pick it up on LP just because the cover art is fabulous, or CD, whichever comes first and is I can afford at the time. Let's put it that way. So yes, just so many musical styles in there, and it's just an amazing album. It's hard to put into words, that all the ground that he covers on this album is just great. And also just the fact that he is just so much himself, and he doesn't give a crap what people think about it. Okay. In my opinion, that just scores more points for an artist, if you ask me. If they are just completely, not afraid to be who they are and all that. So yes, that is my first honorable mention out of 6. My second one is this one I wanted to put in the ranked list, but there were just enough good albums. And as I mentioned yesterday, I had trouble all year long connecting with albums that I picked up on vinyl. And I liked this album, and of course, most of the albums that I picked up on vinyl, thought I was going to like them a lot more than I ended up liking them. But unfortunately, this was not the case. I still really enjoy it. I play it every once in a while. Maybe I will appreciate it more in 2021. This is Anderson East with Maybe We Never Die. Fantastic album. His voice is just absolutely amazing. He's got kind of that ethereal, hauntingly beautiful voice that Oh crap, what's his name? The country guy that he wears a mask. What is his name? I He put on an album called Pony. I cannot remember what his name is, but hopefully I'll come up with it soon. Well, hey, I'm stalling thinking about it. Let me look it up here. Orville Peck. See, I was going to, as soon as I got the keyboard, I was going to find Orville Peck. Yeah, that same kind of ethereal quality to his voice. Just great, great stuff. And actually, I don't need this up right now, so I'll put that down so I can actually see myself. But yeah, great stuff. Madeline is one of the great songs on here. Interstellar Outer Space is an interesting song. And what were some of the other ones? Drugs, that was a pretty good one. And Hood of My Car, I think I remembering liking that one really good. So yeah, very, very good album. Just wasn't quite able to connect with it as much as I wanted to. Third honorable mention, and again, this is the case with a vinyl release that I really, really wanted to like, was not able to connect with as much as especially since how much I loved her last album. It is Star-Crossed by Casey Musgraves. I loved Golden Hour. I'm trying. Golden Hour, I absolutely loved it. It was one of my, I probably should have ranked it higher than I did in my year-end list in its year, but yeah, this one, some great songs on it still, and she's got that great voice and a great sense of melody and stuff. Yeah, just was not able to connect with it. Sometimes albums centering on heartbreak are the hardest ones for me to get into, just because I usually like my albums upbeat. But what can I say? And let's see. Next one on my list. This one I just found in November, mid-November, late November. It is Still Rising by Gregory Porter. And this is an honorable mention, partly because it's mostly a compilation, but it does have, I think, 4 new songs. And it's also a 2-disc set. And the second disc is full of duets with a handful of some of my favorite artists of all time, or favorite current artists. But yes, he is a R&B soul singer, and he also dips a little bit into the gospel realm. For those of you who don't know who Gregory Porter is, gorgeous voice on this guy. And but he does songs with Moby and Amethyst Kia, Jamie Cullum, who is one of my favorites, a posthumous duet with Ella Fitzgerald and Buddy Holly, or separate ones with Ella Fitzgerald, Buddy Holly. Jeff Goldblum, it's a pretty good song he does with Jeff Goldblum, and who's everyone? Oh, Laura Mvula. He does a duet with her on here. And Liz Wright, another soul singer I really, really enjoy. So yeah, just the duets disc by itself is just amazing. But yeah, check out Gregory Porter if you have not. I mean, his stuff is not to be missed. And yeah, it was a 2-disc set, so felt it maybe had a little bit of an unfair advantage. Plus, it was a quasi compilation, so that's why it's in the honorable mentions. I probably could have bumped it into the ranked list, but the next one is one that it kind of hurt to bring this one down into the honorable mentions, but again, I just wasn't able to connect with it as much as the other 30 albums on the list. 30 by Adele, and my list is 30, so coincidence. Yeah, really good stuff. It's probably the Adele album I have enjoyed the most so far, at least thus far with the number of listens I've given it. And again, hoping that it will grow on me more in the coming year. But yeah, she has you cannot deny that she has one of the most spectacular voices in pop music ever. Just wasn't able to connect with that one. Pardon me as I position things so that I don't make stacks too high that will crash over and interrupt the video. And now my final honorable mention. This is a guy that I just discovered a couple weeks ago, literally just before December 31st. And but I've really, really enjoyed him, and he's made his way into the honorable mentions list. And that's one of the only reasons he didn't breach the top 30 is just because I haven't had enough time with him yet to figure out how much I really like it. But what I've listened to of him so far is very, very promising. It's an artist named Jeremy Zucker, and this is his album Crusher. Great stuff. The that I care for. In a couple songs, he talks about having had relationships with women who have had substance abuse problems, and a couple other things. And, there are a couple of heartbreak songs, but there are a couple of other kind of wistfully bittersweet songs, I guess. A little heartbreak, a little hope mixed together. But yeah, I like this one enough that I have also already ordered his first album. This is his sophomore album, so I've ordered his debut album, and it's on its way to me. So yeah, check out Jeremy Zucker if you like kind of the moody singer-songwriter kind of stuff. Good stuff. And now, are you guys ready? Sorry, we're going to do it next week. Bye. Just kidding. Yeah, see, I wasn't the only one who felt that way about Casey. Yeah. Sometimes you miss and sometimes you hit. She couldn't have hit better than with Golden Hour, though, gotta say. Okay, on to the big list. I'm glad you're pumped. Okay, number 30. Kicking off my list of my favorite albums of 2021 is Equals by Ed Sheeran. This is probably the album that I've gotten into most easily of all of his albums, and I've got every one of his albums except number 6 Collaborations Project, but let's not talk about that one. But yes, unfortunately, didn't quite make it any higher than this on this list. Really enjoy it, though. He goes a little bit poppy, and I can understand some reviewers' dissenting opinions on it is because it sounds like he's gotten a little bit commercial, a little bit too poppy. But then, being a best-selling artist, he can't help but be commercial, I guess. So, but oh yeah, Bad Habits and Overpass Graffiti. I really, really like that one. And what's the other one? Visiting Hours. That one really tugged at my heart. I did not get to visit my sister in the hospital when she was there for the last time, but still, and losing someone is not any song about losing someone, losing a loved one is going to get to me probably. So enough of the sad stuff. This is a happy video. Number 29 on my list is, and this one actually really surprised me because up until just a few weeks ago, it was in the honorable mentions, but it is The Lockdown Sessions by Elton John. Not his best effort, definitely not. And he loses me when he does the hip hop and R&B style collaborations. I'm not a fan of those, but this had enough good songs on it and enough songs that are kind of on the bubble for me and kind of promising that I think this one's still going to grow on me some. Because, yeah, after all, his duet with Charlie Puth, I can't help but enjoy that one, let's face it. As well as the song I mentioned yesterday in my favorite songs list of the year, Chosen Family with Rina Sawayama. Great, great, great song. As well as It's a Sin, the song that he did with Years and Years. I love that one. I love the lyrics in that one. Great, great song. And he does a song with Brandi Carlile, Simple Things. That's a great one. And let's see, there's like 2 more, I think. Well, his song with Lil Nas X, One of Me, is on this album. So we get our first and only thus far taste of a Montero song that is on a physical medium is on this album. So that alone gets a point for me. Come on, Lil Nas X, where's the physical release of Montero? And, Stolen Car, the song with Stevie Nicks. I like that one. Not the biggest fan of Stevie Nicks' voice, but hey, it's good. So yes, those songs, that's only 25% of the track list that are definitely positives for me. But hey, also his cover of Nothing Else Matters, the Metallica song with Miley Cyrus and Yo-Yo Ma. I mean, of all people, Yo-Yo Ma, a classical cellist on that song. I mean, hey, that scores points there. And of course, Robert Trujillo, the bassist from Metallica. So that's another good reason for that to be on there. So yeah, I'm glad you weren't disappointed. Yeah, I remember in your review recall, you kind of gave it the approval. Now, number 28, the first and thus far only time that an artist makes 2 appearances on my list, and that's going to eliminate a lot of the possibilities right there. So my good friends who are watching and longtime viewers probably know who this is, except it's not the album that you might think it is, or not the album that a lot of other people would put higher on the countdown. Van Weezer by Weezer. Yes. This is my, spoiler alert, my less favorite of the two Weezer albums put out this year. Love the guitar rock, and of course I'm an 80s kid, so the fact that this album is slathered with 80s influences, yay, I'm all for it. It's just that, well, we'll get to the other album and my reasons why it's ahead of this one when we get to it, but hey, still, it's in my countdown, and anytime, pretty much any time a Weezer album comes out, it's going to be in my countdown probably. So yeah, what can you say? Was there? I can't remember off the top of my head what my favorite songs off that album were, but suffice to say, it's a great album. And again, sorry if I'm just not having a lot to say about some of these. It's just, you know, like I said at the beginning, sometimes just your emotions are key. You can't put across in words, you know. Number 27 on my countdown is another artist that kind of surprised me. They kind of lost me on their last album, but I was going to just completely ignore this one until I decided to stream it just for kicks, and I enjoyed it so much that I picked it up. Heights by Walk the Moon. Yeah, they are, the one thing that struck me about them at the beginning was they, again, kind of like well, kind of like Weezer with Van Weezer. Lots of 80s influences on here and on all their albums, basically. The album that really clinched my appreciation of them was Talking is Hard. It's still one of my favorite albums of its decade, and my favorite Walk the Moon album. But yes, this one kind of, they came back with their game. Like I said, their last album I was not fond of terribly, but this one, and an interesting thing about this one is they bring in Johnny Clegg and his son Jesse. Johnny Clegg was I think like a world beat pop artist back in the late 80s, early 90s. And he actually passed away, was it this year or last year? So, and this, I believe, was his final recording that he did before he passed away. So that's kind of interesting. And, you know, so that song, Fire in Your House, brings a little bit of world beat instrumentation into their sound. And of course, DNA, The Keys, is a great, great song. One of the best tracks on here. And What You Can't Look Up. I love the lyrics on that one. So it's kind of, you know, kind of what do you call it? An appeal to unplug, especially when you're interacting with people. There you go. Good album. I really enjoyed it. Oh, cool. I scored points with Keegan. He likes the Heights. Yeah. As I said, it surprised me. Number 26. Somebody who's watching will probably be happy with this one. Number 26. The Lucky Ones by Pentatonics. He's probably not as not happy that it isn't higher, but hey, it's well within my top 30, and it wasn't going to be because you know, I just couldn't remember a whole lot. And in their defense, it had been weeks, if not months, since I had played it. I just, you know, really gotten serious about getting my list done. So, and was on my cleanup listening, and just the sunny outlook of these guys, and the lyrics, the positive lyrics, and all that stuff just kind of brought me back around and made me remember what a good album this is. And it's their, I believe, just their second album of all original material. Very, very good stuff. Fun stuff to listen to. And what are some of my favorite songs here? Be My Eyes. I love the rhythm of in the chorus of that song. And that reminds me of, I think that's the song where the instrumentation, because it's them that's doing the instrumentation, reminds me of a Tears for Fears song. Is it Mad World? I think there's just the melody of it, not the mood of the song, but just kind of the instrumentation reminds me of that. Or maybe it was another Tears for Fears song, I can't remember. But yeah, Bored, I like that one. You know, when you'd rather sit at home and be bored with a friend, or somebody who's more than a friend, rather than go out for a night of partying. I can relate to that, not personally, you know, more in a hypothetical sense, at least right now, but you know what I mean. Anyway, when I find someone, that's what I'm trying to say, is that will be my attitude, is I'd much rather spend a quiet evening at home than going out and partying. But enough about me. Let's go on with the list. Number 25. And this one, some of you might be disappointed with how low this is, but I will explain why it's so low. Silk Sonic, An Evening with Silk Sonic. hey, Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, how can you go wrong? Great, great tuneful stuff, fantastic songs, a great tribute to 70s soul. It's just, and this may be an unfair assumption by me, and I do need to listen to this album more, but it just seems to me to be a little bit of a case of style over substance. And I guess you can argue that when it comes to some soul songs, there isn't a whole lot of substance unless you get into the the socially aware stuff like when Sly and the Family Stone or Marvin Gaye did it. Aside from them, pretty much all the rest of it is let's have a good time stuff. So it's kind of superficial anyway. So maybe I'm being unfair. So in which case, hopefully this album will climb up my list in retrospect. But yeah, I just say there were more albums that were more connected with me more over the past year than Silk Sonic. But still, an album, if you love upbeat soul stuff, throwback soul, you can't miss this album if you haven't heard it. Good stuff. And number 24, and you've noticed, well, I'll get to that in a minute, sorry. Jumping ahead. Number 24 on my list is In These Silent Days by Brandi Carlile. And this was one of the few fairly late arrivals to my countdown. I had ignored this album for the first month and a half, 6 weeks that it was out, and then I started hearing lots of buzz about it. And on my ride to work one day, I decided to pop it on my Spotify and stream it for the heck of it. And I was kind of blown away. I'm aware of the reputation that Brandi Carlile has had for years. I just never, just never bothered listening to any of her albums just because I didn't think I would enjoy them. Well, I was wrong. This is a great album, especially there's like a 3-song block toward the end of the album. Stay Gentle, which I cited one of my favorite songs of the year in yesterday's video, as well as Sinners, Saints, and Fools, a pair of great songs on here. But there was another one. You and Me on the Rock was a really good one. I like the song. Broken Horses. That was a nice one too. And Mama Werewolf is kind of a fun song. It's got its interesting song there. But yeah, very good stuff. If you like stuff that, and this is, to be fair, this is one album that it doesn't hit you over the head with how good it is at first. It's a grower. It grows on you. And so if you're willing to put in the time to let that one kind of sink in, it's worth it. Very much worth it. Now, let me take a water break first here. 1 second. Gosh, I'm getting so many comments, I might have to devote an entire video just to reading over the comments. Because I don't know if I can do that while I'm live streaming. Maybe I can. Anyway. Actually, when we're done, I'll go over the comments and we'll talk. Number 23 on my list, and this here you will notice that not a lot of stuff in my list is on vinyl. And I talked about that yesterday with my year in review. Just wasn't connecting with vinyl, wasn't feeling the vinyl as much this year as I have in the last couple of years. And you can find out why in my essay yesterday. By the way, in my yesterday's video, just before I came online, I was able to put in chapter markers. So if you wanted to skip to a certain part in the video, you can do that now. And I also changed the default description from description to what the video is actually about. I usually do that the day after I stream the videos, just so you know. So yeah, if you don't want to sit through all this boring crap and you want to be able to snap to certain parts, just wait until the next day and you'll usually find chapter markers. But anyway, number 23 is the first in my ranked list that is on vinyl. It is Jake and Friends by Jake Shimabukuro. He is a ukulele artist, and when I mean artist, I mean it in every sense of the word. He does things, and he was in one of my top 10 lists 2 years ago, I think, and I said the same stuff in that last video. He does things with the ukulele that will blow your mind. I mean, you think ukulele and you think Tiny Tim with his rinky-dink strumming. No. Jake Shimabukuro is leagues above and beyond. And if you've been reading the guest artist lists on this album, it's just amazing. It's like a who's who. Yeah, just look at it. Michael McDonald, Jimmy Buffett, Kenny Loggins, Willie Nelson. I'm reading it backwards because the video image is backwards as I'm looking at it. But yes, this is a combination of original songs and covers. And half of the covers are covers of classic songs. And the other half are covers of songs that were originally done by the artist he brings in to guest with him on them. if you understand what I mean. Like if I can see if I can find an example of that. I probably can't since the camera's rolling. Oh, Too High, which was a song by Moon Taxi. He brings in Moon Taxi to do his own take on it. So it's a double album, a double vinyl, and it is 16 songs. So yeah, it's worth putting on 2 LPs, and it was worth buying. I mean, just yeah, if you're not sure, if you have preconceptions about the ukulele, check out Jake Shimabukuro, and he will blow your mind. And just the interpretations on this. I covered this in one of my Spankin' Platters videos. I believe it was the summer Spankin' Platters. So yes, check it out in more detail. But yes, if you want a little something different, if you've never checked out ukulele artists before, he is the best place to start, in my opinion, for that. So yes, that was number 23. Number 22 is an album that I was hoping was going to be higher, but when it came down to it, there was so much other great music in the year. But this album has a lot of memories attached to it. It is Sour by Olivia Rodrigo. And yes, it's on a lot of people's albums of the year list, which kind of surprised me. I mean, a few years ago, who would have thought that a Disney Channel star would be at the top of albums of the year list by so many people? But honestly, she's accolades, in my opinion. And the memories I have attached to this, let's just say this is, at least it was, actually, no, I think it still is, the favorite album of the year of my good friend Noah. And of course, we had to play, I think we played the entire album at least once when I was out there in Oklahoma visiting him. And particularly the song Good For You, I must have heard 8 times over the course of my stay there. And that was on my Songs of the Year list yesterday. And yes, it became an earworm, and it was such a quick and easy earworm that how can you blame it for just burrowing into your head? But yeah, some great good lyrics on here. And I mean, this is her debut album, so you can tell she's got a gift for the lyrics and for the instrumentation, the pop melodies. And she had help, obviously, but for a debut effort, very remarkable. Brutal is the opening track, and that's a great song. And of course, her big hit, Driver's License. And then Deja Vu was a really good song. That was one of the ballads, and it was really, really good. And One Step Forward, Three Steps Back, that was okay. But yeah, a good album, gotta say. And yeah, so yeah, I know. Sorry, Noah, what can I say? And now number 21. Interesting story about this album is it's all the way down at number 21, but it is quite possibly the album that I played most this year since it came out. It's just, for some reason, I couldn't, on days when I just couldn't think of what to listen to, I put this on, and it was kind of a default for a while. And that's one reason why it, worked its way up to number 21. Read into that what you will. But, as I said, so many other good albums. It is Reverie by Ben Platt. Hey, you can't blame me. His name isn't on the cover, so I had to think of what it was. But yes, this is his sophomore album. He is an actor, stage actor, and singer, and this is great. This is just great stuff. Then this is one of those albums that I'm not going to be able to really articulate why I like it as much as I do. Childhood Bedroom, that has, as the title kind of implies, it's got a bit of a nostalgia vibe to it. It talks about dancing in his childhood bedroom and, bringing back good memories of when he was a kid. And a couple of bittersweet love songs on here. Happy to Be Sad, that's a really good one. And I Want to Love You, But I Don't, that's kind of a heartbreaker. And yeah, Leave My Mind and Dance With You. Those were 2 of the hookier songs on this album. And yeah, as I said, I don't know why I like this album so much. And again, it was probably just the repeat factor, the fact that I played it so much, and I've just become attached to it. And yeah, who knows how it will fare in the long term. But yeah, I liked his first album, sort of, and it was a little bit different than this one. This one has much more of a modern pop, contemporary pop / R&B sensibility than his previous album. His previous album was more adult contemporary pop, I guess you'd say. being a stage actor and a Broadway star, that was kind of the route he went with first. Then he took the more contemporary pop route, but still a good album. And number 20 on my list. We're in the top 20. You Got to Meet Ben Platt. Jealous. Wow. I keep forgetting. You did go to the little red carpet event there. Lucky bastard. Anyway, yes, everybody be jealous of Keegan. Anyway, number 20 on my list is Sob Rock by John Mayer. Color Me Surprised. Yes, the songs in and of themselves are, not very, they don't really grab you. For me, it's the 80s nostalgic thing. He does very much of an 80s homage on this album. And, the instrumentation echoes a lot of the 80s kind of stuff. And, of course, the album cover as well. And, of course, my sister was a huge fan of John Mayer. And so I kind of became, by osmosis, I guess you'd say, I became a John Mayer fan. And so I kind of had to pick up this album when it came out, especially when I heard it was an 80s influenced album. Not the best album on this list, obviously, but still a very, very good one, and one that I felt right at putting at number 20. And yes, don't you love the crack in the jewel case? Anyway, yes, those last two were, I had a little trouble justifying their positions on the countdown, but what can I say? The list is what it is at the time, as I said in the boilerplate stuff. At the time that I made the list, this is what I felt of the albums. So, number 19 on this list is kind of a niche album, something that not everybody's going to be a fan of, but it's the kind of stuff that I really enjoy. Not all the time, but in occasional enough doses. It is Love for Sale by Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga. And I mentioned this when I covered in a Spankin' Platters as well. I mentioned how this is the second pairing of Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett, and this could very well possibly be Tony Bennett's last album. That's going to make me sad right there if it turns out to be so. But what I mentioned in comparison to their last pairing, on their first effort together, their first collaboration, she went a little bit overboard on her vocals and kind of went into that, slipped into that pop diva gear a couple of times through the course of the album. But by the time she did this album, she had learned the nuance of restraining her voice into that classic pop sensibility, and this album became so much the better for it. I mean, she's just it, and it also proves how what kind of finesse she has with her voice. So and what a great vocalist she is, and how versatile she is at vocals. And I think that was the word I was looking for. Her versatility as a vocalist, and of course, Tony Bennett is Tony Bennett, and there's never going to be another Tony Bennett, let's face it. But yes, a fantastic album, some great songs on here. They were all, what were they, Cole Porter songs? I cannot remember. Yeah, I believe it was a tribute to Cole Porter, all the songs on here. So yes, wonderful album. If you like that kind of stuff, it's just fantastic. And now number 18. This one might surprise you guys. It might be a bit of a hot take, but especially considering that Billie Eilish is not on this list. She's just one of the artists that I cannot connect with. Sorry. But yes, Phineas with his album Optimist is my number 18 pick on the list. And yeah, for some reason I just connected with this and I wasn't fond. I tried listening to both of Billie Eilish's albums, could not get into them, so I was not expecting much out of Phineas. So my expectations were low, but he kind of blew them out of the water. I was surprised at the diversity of sounds on this album. He even does a little bit of a classical interlude halfway through the album, so he dabbles in classical composition. In fact, didn't he study that in college? Maybe he studied that in college. I can't remember, but yeah. Suffice to say, this was a surprise for me, and a very pleasant one at that. 90s kid. Oh, no, the 90s. The track listing is so small that I'm having trouble reading it. The 90s, which is a bit of a tribute to the nostalgia of the 90s. Of course, I connected with that. And The Kids Are All Dying is a great political statement in the lyrics. A socio-political statement, I guess. And there were a couple other songs on here. Medieval, I loved the vocal vocal and lyrical structure in Medieval. That's a great song as well. So, yeah. So, yeah, a hot take probably, but that was my 18th favorite album of the year. And this video is going to go well over an hour because we're already 50 minutes in. Sorry. Hope you guys will stick around. I will, as I said, I will divide these up into chapters, probably chapters of every 10 albums. So if you have to go away, I might cry, but I won't blame you. And you can always come back later and watch the replay. Anyway, number 17. And of course, if I didn't stop and chit-chat so much, this video wouldn't be so long. So let's keep going. Number 17 is Detour Divorce by Bare Naked Ladies. I have been a fan of Bare Naked Ladies basically from their first album, Gordon. And so this basically couldn't not be on my list. They lost me a little bit shortly after Stephen Page left, but not necessarily because Stephen Page left. It's just they had a couple of albums in there that I was not terribly crazy about, but in their last few albums, they've kind of come back stronger, in my opinion. I like this one, and this is the first album on which I actually liked the vocals by, I'm forgetting his name, I should have written notes, but yes, the keyboardist, I believe it is. I've always found his lyrics until now to be kind of just unappealing, but now maybe it's just because I've gotten used to them. Some great stuff on here. Flip is a great song, and one of my favorite, that's one of the songs I should have put on my favorite songs of the year list. New Disaster. That's got a great statement, a great socio-political statement in it about commercialization, or the fact that we're exposed to disastrous news all the time, and it's just become a part of the news cycle that is sponsored by, commercial breaks. That's basically the gist of the song. And yeah, that should have been one of my greatest songs of the year list. Hindsight is 2020. And then Flat Earth is another great jab at certain people, people with fringe opinions. Let's just put it that way. And Bylaw is another song. Bylaw is one of the ones that was with vocals by Kevin Hearn. That's his name. Kevin Hearn. Just very appealing. Plenty of good stuff on here. It surprised me with finding as much on there to like as I did. Very surprising. Now, number 16 on my list. Oh yes, I switched these. I have a paper list here, but I put sticky notes on the backs of these so I would keep track of which one is which. High-tech stuff, sticky notes. Number 16 on my list is one that you guys probably have not heard of, and I can't remember if I covered this one. Yes, I think I covered this one in the Spankin' Platters. It is I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself by Colin Hay. This is another artist that I've been a fan of for most of my life, whether as a solo artist or as he started out with being a member of Men at Work, one of the best rock pop artists of the 80s. And this has got, his 12th, 13th album. And this is a covers album. As you can see by the hype sticker, he does songs by The Kinks, The Beatles, Faces, Jerry and the Pacemakers, Jimmy Cliff, Dusty Springfield. And he doesn't do anything radical with any of the songs in terms of their arrangements or anything, but it's just his voice. And I've been fond of his voice for so many years. It's like a comfy old sweater, sneakers or whatever. You put it on and you just love it, no matter what he sings. And let's see, he does actually, I think, 2 Beatles songs, if I remember correctly. Yes, Across the Universe, as well as Norwegian Wood. Excellent renditions of both of those, as well as I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself, the title track, which Dusty Springfield made famous. Fantastic. And Waterloo Sunset, which I became fond of by way of the movie Love, Simon. He does a fantastic rendition of that. And he does it as a bit more of a down-tempo dirge, I guess you'd say. Not really a dirge, but more down-tempo than the Kinks version. So, and that's probably about the most radical departure that he takes in terms of arrangements. But yes, if you like covers albums, check this one out. Do not pass it up. And in my opinion, Colin Hay's voice has only gotten better with age. Let's face it. Number 15 on my list. Some of you might have seen this coming, especially if you remember my list of favorite songs yesterday. Yes, you might find this one silly. My number 15 album of the year is Start Again by Donny Osmond. As I said when I covered this in a Spankin' Platters video, I never imagined that a 60-some-year-old Mormon white guy would put out such an amazing contemporary pop/R&B album. This would compete head-to-head with anything that the Backstreet Boys have put out. Seriously, I mean, and the Backstreet Boys' last album, DNA, was pretty darn good. This one I think is better than that. And in fact, I think this does rank higher this year than DNA ranked in its year. But yes, right from the opening track, I mean, nearly every track on here has a great groove and a great instrumental hook and a great vocals. Emotional thing, not emotional thing, but a emotional thing, which you can see here. That one's a really good one. And Let's All Dance. And most of the songs do have a let's have fun vibe to them. So, it would be kind of weird and creepy for somebody of Donny Osmond's age to do a kind of a sexy, sensual, let's do something kind of song. So thankfully he stays away from those. But he does have a couple of ballads, a couple of tender ballads on this album as well. So, but yeah, if you like good contemporary pop, don't pass up this album. And I know somebody who, at least as far as I know, still has not listened to that one song on this album. And I've been goading him to listen to it, knowing that he would like it, and he hasn't yet. I don't know if he's still watching because I haven't seen a comment from him in a while. Anyway, number 14 on my list is, and this one fell a little bit further than I thought it was going to, judging by where it was in my mid-year list that I did with Noah on location in Oklahoma. Check that video out on his channel, by the way. My number 14 pick is Medicine at Midnight by the Foo Fighters. This was the first album that the Foo Fighters put out while I was a fan of them, and actually it's the album that kind of brought me back to the Foo Fighters. I was a fan of a few of their singles, but never really checked out a full album of theirs. Actually, maybe I did way back in the day, but they weren't for me at the time. But now, and right after this album came out was when I was able to buy a single lot containing the Foo Fighters' entire studio album discography. So talk about great timing and a pretty darn good price. But anyway, I'm digressing. But yes, this album, and it's kind of up my alley too. It's got some 80s influences again. No shortage of 80s influences in this list. And, right from the opening track, Making a Fire, those na-na-nas at the beginning, that just grabs me right in. And Shame, Shame was the song that I heard on. That's what kind of clinched it. I heard it on the radio. I Shazammed it, and I saw, hey, that's the Foo Fighters? Maybe I should look into them again. And the rest is history. So, but yeah, Waiting on a War has an interesting political statement in it. And yeah, just one good song after another. A very short album, which might be why it's no higher on this list. It's only 9 songs and it's 35 minutes long. But then with the way some artists like to put out tediously long albums, maybe that's a good thing. And now on to number 13 on my list. And this one, again, was kind of one of the last ones to make it into my list. I ignored the album for a few months, actually several months after it came out, and just decided to check it out on a whim about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And I was kind of blown away. We Are by John Batiste. Yes, fantastic R&B soul, a lot of it with socio-political content, not the really divisive kind of socio-political content, but cultural awareness, I guess, more than socio-political. But yes, some of the songs here were inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement, but he doesn't get really pointed in his in the lyrical content with regard to that. So it's a very subtle treatment, and I mean, he's got some great guest appearances on here. Zadie Smith, who I believe is a poet, a poet and an author, African American, appears on one song in here, and he's actually got a what's her name? Oh, Mavis. Is it Mavis Staples or another? I can't remember. I should have taken notes, but a soundbite from Mavis. I'm going to mess that up. Sorry. Not sure which Mavis it was, but yes. And she is also kind of an activist in the African American community, or maybe she was. I think she might have passed away. But yeah, Trombone Shorty also makes a guest appearance on here. And so, yes, an excellent album. And it's got a wide array of instrumental moods and influences as well. It's got some hip hop in there. It's got some jazz, and it's got some gospel, and it's like everything. What more could you want from an album? Yes. and just great. It's great all around. What can I say? It's number 13. Number 12 is finally we're getting to another vinyl release. And this one also was on my mid-year list, but it sank a couple places. Well, a few places. It's number 12. And you also saw it yesterday in my favorite album covers segment. It is Greenfield's The Gibb Brothers Songbook Volume 1. And as I outlined in my Spankin' Platters review of it, my sister really loved the Bee Gees when she was younger. And this album is a collection of Bee Gees or Barry Gibb written songs, covers of these, along with, he is joined by a bunch of country and Americana artists and folk artists. And my sister was really starting to get into country and folk stuff in her last few years. So just a fantastic arrangement of stuff on here. I've Got to Get a Message to You featuring Keith Urban is the opening track, and that's just great. Jason Isbell, Brandi Carlile, Alison Krauss, Dolly Parton. I mean, the list goes on of these stellar guest appearances. It's right up there with Jake Shimabukuro's album, with the caliber of guest artists on here. So yes, if you want to take a chance, if you like the G stuff, or even if you don't, and you want to take a different take, listen to a different take on them, a more laid-back country Americana take on them instead of the old disco arrangements. They are exceptionally well done on this album, and this is a can't miss. And again, it's like a 16, oh no, this is just a 12-track album, but it's a double LP. Was well worth the money here. Sheryl Crow, Olivia Newton-John, and yeah, fantastic album. I always appreciate when an artist, and especially the originating artist, decides to rework their stuff and put a different spin or different take on them. And that's what this is, and it's, as I said, fantastically well done. Reminds me of the Elton John tribute album that came out a couple of years ago, where it was country and Americana artists that did countrified versions of Elton John songs. They were all well done. Those songs transcended genre, kind of like these songs do. Excellent stuff. Now, number 11, it kind of hurt for me to put this one outside of my top 10, because these guys, kind of like a couple of other artists on here, it's a band that I've been into for 30 years, and this is their first album in 20 years, I think. So no, I've been into them for more than 30 years. And yes, their first album in 20 years, and I thought I was never going to get another album from them, but they decided to be nice to us and put one out this year. It is a North Carolina rock band called the Connells, and this is their album Stedman's Wake. And even after 20 years, Doug McMillan's voice has not lost a bit. It is kind of like Colin Hay, that comfy old sweater. You put it on, and I mean, it takes me right back to the early 90s, or actually pretty much all throughout the 90s and the very, very beginning of the 2000s. When I was listening to them, I waited with bated breath for every one of their albums as they came out. And yes, this one, their first one in 20 years, and it's fantastic. Oh gosh. Fading In is one of the great songs on here, and Really Great is the opening song. Stedman's Wake is the title track is another good one. And these guys have, if they've improved on anything, it is the way that they lyrically structure their songs, and there's a little wordplay sometimes in the lyrics, and it's kind of, I don't know if it quite stretches into heartland rock. It's maybe more like barroom rock, I guess you'd say, kind of like Mellencamp maybe, but a little bit more laid back than Mellencamp, I guess. But yeah, if you just want to put your feelers out and see, or just out of curiosity, see the kind of stuff that I like, check out the Connells with their album Stedman's Wake. It is my number 11 pick for album of the year. This video might end up being an hour and a half long. Wow. But isn't it worth it? Aren't I worth it? I mean, come on. Anyway, we're into the top 10, so it won't last for too much longer. I won't torture you for too much longer here. Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm not sure what album that's... Oh, yeah, I think you were talking about the Donny Osmond. Anyway, my top 10. Here we are, the top 10 albums. And this one might actually be... No, I don't think it's the latest entry into my list, but it's one of the latest ones. I found this album after Thanksgiving, so it was December before I even found out about this album. And I've been trying to remember who it was that I first heard about this album from, and I'm wondering if it was you, Keegan. You might have to let me know, because I could have sworn this was on one of your review recalls, but I scanned through them and couldn't find it. Anyway, Mickey Guyton. She is a country artist, and she is African American. So consequently, I guess you'd say, there's just a little bit of um, R&B mixed into her country. And this is her debut full-length album, Remember Her Name. It is fantastic. I love this album. As you can see, it's number 10. It just grew on me tremendously. I saw it in Barnes & Noble, and I remember, oh, hey, so I heard about this artist from somewhere. And so I cranked up Spotify on my phone and, held the phone up to my ear and listened to a couple songs. I listened to 2 songs, and then I picked up that CD and bought it. And I've just been enjoying it ever since. And being an African-American country artist, some of the songs you might venture to guess or conjecture, some of the songs are about her fitting in to a world that she may not necessarily fit into. Songs like Different, which was on my album, my Songs of the Year list, as well as the song right after that, Love My Hair. It's about her when she was a kid, being ashamed of certain aspects of herself. But by the time she's an adult, she has learned to own them and embrace them. And how can you not love that kind of stuff? I mean, it's just just great songs here. And sorry, I was getting distracted by the comments. And the song All American, that one is, it's not a flag-waving song, but it is a song about how we've become so divided, and she's just trying to remind us all of the things that make us all Americans. And sorry to any Canadians out there who might be missing the boat on this, but and Black Like Me is another song that talks about her fitting in or not fitting in, and but yes, I mean the great songs don't stop there. I could I don't want to make more awkward pauses in this video than there already are, but yeah, suffice to say, it's number 10 on my list, my top 10, after being in my sphere of awareness for a very short time. That should tell you how great that album is, in my opinion. Number 9. Okay, this one, you guys, this one's probably the hottest take on my list, but then it's an album that I don't think a lot of people have listened to. But some of you guys might scratch your head about this. Some of you guys might already know what's coming. But as you know, all I can say is, as soon as I found out this album was dropping, and as soon as I found out who was involved in it, I just something just told me it was going to be a great album, and I was not disappointed in the least. William Shatner with his album Bill. Now hold the phone, don't click away. This is an autobiographical album, very autobiographical. He talks, pretty much every song touches on aspects of himself, in the present, or episodes of his youth from his childhood. Like songs like So Far From the Moon talks about the week that his marriage was ending in divorce, and that he found out that Star Trek was canceled. Also happened to be the week, or very, very close to the week, that a man landed on the moon. And so he was talking about, the song is about, it's actually a duet with Brad Paisley. So he brings in some big names on this album. And so it was about him. He was, I guess, living in his truck at the time. And so he was sitting in the bed of his truck, listening to the radio, listening to the moon landing on the radio, and thinking about his divorce and the end of his TV show, Star Trek. So yes, a very melancholy song like that. And he does Joe Jonas of the Jonas Brothers, who was basically the instrumental force that helped to get this album made. He appears on at least one track here, Clouds of Guilt, and just basically talks about how William Shatner has been riddled with guilt about things, one thing or another, through most of his life. And he never really realized it until recently when he sat down to think about it. And Robert Randolph, who is a soul, R&B, and gospel artist, and dabbles in blues as well, it appears on 2 songs here. A song called Just Forgive, which is in a way is kind of like a sequel to Clouds of Guilt, where he's learned to learn the art of forgiveness in various things about life and stuff, as well as the song Tuffy, which I cited in my favorite songs of the year list. Talks about episodes of bullying that he endured as a kid, and who can't relate to that. And he is an avid horseman, and there are a couple songs on here where he talks about his love of horses. And and another song called "The Bridge," which relates to a car accident that almost cost him his life when he was young and heading out of his native Canada to head to Hollywood to try and make it as an actor. And so, yeah, just a great slice of life. I learned things about William Shatner on this album that I had never known about him before. And yes, it is spoken word. He doesn't try to sing because he knows he can't sing. But yeah, still, it's just a very good song, very poignant in a lot of the songs and lyrics. So yeah, it's my number 9. Hey, it's my list. So anyway, now, and you might have just caught a glimpse of my number 8. Yes, this is an album that I've been a fan of this artist for a while now. I kind of drifted away from her, but I eventually came back to her, especially when I heard that this album was, again, packed with the 80s influences. Laura Mvula with her album Pink Noise. Absolutely fantastic stuff on here. And yes, I got, as I said, loaded with 80s influences. And her first 2 albums were kind of soul R&B singer-songwriter kind of stuff, more in the mood of maybe Sade than anything else. A little bit of jazz in there too. But this one, she kind of made a 180 and did the pop R&B thing, and it works for her. I mean, it's just great. It was different, So those of you who are fans of her previous 2 albums, it might take some getting used to this new sound, but fantastic stuff. And we're getting down to I could name any song on the album, and it would be great. And Church Girl was a really, really good one, and Magical, another fantastic song on here. Safe Passage, the opening track is excellent. So, yeah, what can I say? My 8th favorite album of the year. We are inching closer to my number 1. And this video is going to be an hour and a half. Sorry, people. But anyway, number 7 on my list is the second of 2 albums by this artist. Yes, it got this high. Some people are going to disagree with this. This one might be one of the hotter takes in my list. It is OK Human by Weezer. OK Human? Yes, OK Human by Weezer. What can I say? I connected with the lyrics on this album. And like I've mentioned before, I think I might have even mentioned this earlier on in my list, I kind of like it when an artist or a band tries a little something different. Honestly, if you're expecting the same thing out of an artist for each and every album, doesn't it get a little predictable? And also it speaks to their courage. They're not afraid to try something different. And I think they scored. They did a hit and not a miss with this album. But yeah, just the lyrics, a lot of the lyrics were about trying to disconnect yourself from technology, your tablets and your phones, and, get away from the internet for a while and that kind of stuff. And that was probably the stuff that I connected with most on this album. And that kind of carries through with the cover art. It's like they're inside their own bubbles connected to all sorts of gadgets and stuff. So, hey, it's something different from Weezer, but it was my favorite Weezer album of 2021. Now, we're actually on to 2 vinyl albums in a row for my number 6 and number 5 picks, and my man Noah is going to be happy with this one. My number 6 favorite album of the year is Take the Sadness Out of Saturday Night by Bleachers. Yes, it is not my favorite Bleachers album by any means, but this is an album that is high ranking, I can speak, ranks as high on this list for the memories attached to it, just as much for the music. Bleachers, or Jack Antonoff specifically, is Noah's favorite artist and producer. And this album just happened to drop the week that I was out there in Oklahoma with Noah and Alyssa and Tucker. And of course, we absolutely had to listen to it in its entirety at least a couple of times. This album soundtracked more than one of our road trips. And so the emotions or memories attached to this song are just right up there. And of course, he's got Bruce freaking Springsteen. Come on. If you pull in Bruce Springsteen, you're doing something right. Just so that song right there, Chinatown, is fantastic. And of course, the song that made one of my favorite songs of the list, songs of the year list, Stop Making This Hurt, was fantastic. And of course, 45. At 45 in Chinatown, we'd been hearing for like over a year. So I was used to how good those songs were. And What Did I Do With All This Faith? That was an interesting closer on the album. Yes, I still love Strange Desire a whole lot more than this album, but still, this one ranks right up there. And the fact that I got the indie store exclusive cover edition is a little bit worth it. And I bought it while I was there, so that's another memory that's attached to it. It's a memento of my Oklahoma trip. So yeah, well-deserved spot at number 6 on my countdown. Top 5. Now this one, my number 5 pick, is an artist that I don't think I have ever mentioned. Oh, well, actually, I mentioned him yesterday because one of his songs is in my top 5, or my songs of the year list. Sorry, I keep glancing over the comments, and that interrupts my train of thought. I should put tape over those or something. Number 5 on my list is Tasjan, Tasjan, Tasjan by Aaron Lee Tasjan. This guy is just excellent. He's got kind of a mix of the glam rock of 70s and 80s Elton John, with a little bit of Beck sensibility in it as well, and his voice reminds me of Matthew Sweet. So if you kind of put elements of all those three things into a blender and mix it up, and he's also an LGBTQ artist, so he's got a bit of a queer sensibility to some of his lyrics. The song "Feminine Walk" is one of my favorites on here, as well as "Computer of Love," that talks about, it's kind of like a song talks about online dating, and how people who, when you see them on the internet, are not who they appear to be in real life, or are not who they are in real life. You know what I'm trying to say. And "Don't Overthink It" was one of my songs in my songs of the year list. Fantastic, a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, and he puts his tongue in his cheek in a couple of songs on this album. So sense of humor is another thing that I like in songs, but cartoon music is one of the better songs. So if you have not listened to Aaron Lee Tasjan's album, Tasjan, listen to it. Trust me. Trust Tom, okay? Trust your Uncle Tom. It's number 5 on my countdown. You got to listen to it. So yes. Sorry I couldn't articulate my thoughts more eloquently than that, but that's just one of those albums that I just love so much. So I hope you guys are making notes on the albums that are up here on my list to listen to them. Number 4 on my list, and somebody, Ron, the Duran Duran fan extraordinaire, is going to be happy with this. Future Past by Duran Duran is my number 4 favorite album of the year. And again, Duran Duran is one of those artists like Men at Work and the Connells that I have been a fan of for most of my life. Ever since the 80s, I came into them in 85, I think. So it's like I missed their first couple albums, but when I heard Seven and the Ragtagger, I was hooked. Excuse me. But yes, and in their middle period, like their pop trash era, right around the middle of their discography, they started to lose me a little bit, but their last few albums have been fantastic, and they've never put out a bad album. It's just some of the albums that I've heard of theirs have been a little underwhelming, but this one, they are pretty much in top form, I've got to say. And I could cite pretty much every song on here. Anniversary is great, and that kind of slyly pokes fun at the fact that this album was put out in the 40th anniversary year of their first album. So they've been around for 40 years. 41 years now. And the song Invisible is a great opener. And gosh, Future Past, I really enjoyed that one, the title track. Some people were not crazy about that one that I heard, but that was a great one. And yes, just the track listing, just from top to bottom, is just great. I'm not sure if I like this one more than Paper Gods or not, but it is up there. And when in this list, it's up there too. So we're coming down. Hopefully I'll be able to limit this video to an hour and a half. So, fingers crossed. Number 3 on my list is one that a lot of people loved, and I'm one of those people. Nurture by Porter Robinson. Gotta love it. And this was one that I can't remember who it was that or where I heard about it that convinced me to listen to it. I wonder maybe if it was Garrett, a young entertainment specialist. I can't remember. But anyway, I listened to it, and a few years ago I was into EDM, the kind of EDM where a DJ producer had a bunch of guest artists and guest vocalists come into the and feature on the albums. But in the last year or so, I've kind of fallen off of some of those. A few of them I still like, but most albums, CDs of that ilk I've found myself getting rid of lately. But and Porter Robinson is different in that he pretty much relies on or keeps to himself for this. He's got a couple of guest artists on this album, I think, but for the most part, this is all his own doing, and it is fantastic stuff. And the opening track, particularly, this was, I think, was number 2 on my mid-year list that I did with Noah. But yeah, the opening track, when I hear it, that's the vision in my head, the album cover. And this was actually in the running for one of my favorite album covers of the year. But yeah, just and the album just takes off from there. Some interesting textures on this album as well. The instrumental textures and the vocal effects. Like a couple of the songs, he cuts between male vocalist, which I assume is himself, and female vocalist singing the same lyrics, but just randomly cuts between them, which creates an interesting effect. Something I'd never heard before in song. But yes, I mean, just so much good stuff on here. I mean, Music Man, and well, I would give us another awkward silent moment here, looking over the track listing, trying to remember the songs that I like most, probably just because I liked so many of them on this album. And yes, number 3 on my list, for darn good reason, is Nurture by Porter Robinson. So, and sorry, another water break. A very quick water break. Now, some of you guys, if you sat and thought for a minute, you'd probably deduce what my top 2 are, just because of how much I love them and because I haven't mentioned them yet. This one actually was my number 1 album in my mid-year countdown with Noah. So some of you already know which one this is. It is Ancient Dreams in a Modern Land by Marina. Love this one to the moon and back, practically. And the funny thing is, I had actually lost interest in her, at least her first 3 albums. I'm kicking myself now because before this one came out, I put her first 3 albums up on my Discogs page, sold all 3 of them, but I had second thoughts about Love and War, Love and Fear, excuse me, or her predecessor to this one. I decided to keep that one, and I decided to give this one a chance. I saw it come up, and I thought, no, what the heck, I'll listen to it, and I loved it. So I now wish I hadn't sold those albums. But maybe I'll come back and I'll listen to them again on streaming, then decide whether or not I want to pick them up again. But yes, this one has a lot of socio-political commentary in it, which was kind of an attractant to me. And yes, I'm having trouble thinking. My brain's starting to fry. I've been talking for almost an hour and a half, so I have trouble giving you specifics. But Purge the Poison is about the environmental damage we've been doing to the planet, and the fact that we need to get our act together and try and clean it up, unless it's already too late, which it might be. But anyway, enough of the depressing stuff. Ancient Dreams in a Modern Land. What was that one about? I'm sorry. This is one of the moments that New America is about how, if I recall correctly, how we've gotten a little bit misguided, and our values have become what they probably shouldn't be. And maybe we need to work on ourselves with that. And of course, Highly Emotional People, my second favorite song of the year, as I just talked about yesterday, is about how we need to, we're healthier when we get in touch with our emotions, which we all had heightened emotions in the last couple of years with all the stuff that's been going on. So we shouldn't be afraid to talk about our emotions, embrace them. Oh, and Venus Flytrap, that was one where she was kind of a female empowerment anthem, of one of my most favorite ones of the year in terms of female empowerment anthems. Great, great song. The entire album is fantastic. Look at my, I believe I talked about it in a Spankin' Platters. Go back to that one to hear my more detailed thoughts on it, because my brain's getting a little bit fuzzy and tired right now. So, without further ado, my number 1 favorite album of 2021. This might be a hot take. Go easy on me with the flaming. Just kidding. You didn't think I would put it. Yes, I liked it enough to buy it, but I bought it used for $6, so go easy on me. I just thought I'd throw that one in there for you. My number 1 seriously know that my favorite my number one favorite album of 2021. Some of you might have guessed this through process of elimination. It is Saturday Night, Sunday Morning by Jake Bugg. This guy just gets better with every album. I'm trying to minimize the glare. And yeah, this one was just right up there. I found myself, yeah, gotcha, Keegan. Yeah, just every single song on this album is just fantastic. He does a little bit of EDM on one song. I believe that was Downtown. Oh no, that was Lost. And you know, a little bit emo, kind of an indie rock, sort of like maybe a is it Arctic Monkeys or Black? No, White Stripes thing. That's what I was thinking of. On a couple of songs like Rabbit Hole, he does a little bit more of a hard-edged indie rock on some of those, and he does some great tender singer-songwriter ballads, some acoustic stuff on here. So it's like pretty much all over the place, and some Britpop stuff like Kiss Like the Sun. So it's like it's all, you know, very dimensional, very dynamic, but it just feels like it all ties together, in my opinion. And so and the fact that it's just consistently listenable from top to bottom, that is, and just also the fact that I just love Jake Bugg and have loved him since just about when he started. I think I came into him on his sophomore album. That, for those reasons, brings Jake Bugg to the top of my list of my favorite albums of 2021. How's about them apples? Or them CDs? Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my list. Yes, I've got, about 4 minutes left. I kind of been going through the comments as they've been happening. But yeah, wasn't too crazy about Silk Sonic, but hey, it's up there, and maybe it'll grow on me in the coming year. And that's one of the things I'm hoping for with the albums that are further down the list. Maybe they will grow on me. I've always thought about doing a retrospective, coming back to a favorites list from like 1 or 2 years earlier. And I almost did that one year, like the second or third year of my channel, and I just got sidetracked and never did. So it's an idea to maybe play with if I ever get the time or urge or motivation to do that. But yeah, I'm still jealous that you got to meet Ben Platt. Must have been awesome. And you got to meet, it wasn't Beyonce, was it? Ariana Grande, I think you got to meet. So jelly. Anyway, sorry, I'll never say that word again. I'm too old to say words like that. But oh, Shayak, you were close, Shayak. You almost called it on Duran Duran. But yeah. Well, I hope you guys. It sounds like in the comments like you guys were pretty much satisfied with my list. I almost got you with that AJR, didn't I? But yes, think of me what you will. I did enjoy it enough to pick it up and buy it on CD. I bought it used for just $6, so I didn't waste a whole lot of money. But hey, I like it, okay? And I had not checked out AJR until now. And the story is, I don't know if I told you guys this, but what got me to check them out was a song of theirs, and it is Way Less Sad, has been used as bumper music or intro and outro music for NFL football telecasts here in the States. And so it's like, I heard that song, and it's like, they just used the instrumental trumpet part, and it's like, that's kind of cool. That's kind of funky and catchy. I wonder what that is. Looked it up, and it led me to the CD, and I picked up the CD, and I like it. What can I say? So that's the story of how I got into AJR, or this one AJR album. I haven't explored beyond that. So anyway, well, I think I better cut this off at the 1 hour and 30-minute mark, because otherwise there's going to be a revolt maybe. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this list. I had a super fun time doing it. Next weekend, maybe Friday, maybe on the weekend, thinking about doing a more informal state of the channel live stream, maybe just a free-form talk about what I'm thinking about doing, maybe some of my goals for the next year on my channel. And maybe if you guys just have some questions, maybe we can make it a, I can look at the chat stream, the stream chat, and answer your questions. Throw me questions on the fly, and we can answer in that way. Just a little informal thing next Friday, maybe, or maybe Saturday. I'll try and announce it as soon as I decide when to put it on. But anyway, that'll do it for my albums of the year for 2021. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, hit that like button and share it with your friends. And give me your thoughts, questions, suggestions, or constructive criticisms in the comments section below. Also, scroll down to the description for the links to my Twitter and Instagram feeds, and links to my favorite fellow YouTubers who are all worth checking out. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and browse my past videos. And be sure to ring that notifications bell so you'll be the first to know each time I drop a new video. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next weekend, and remember, life's too short to be a music snob. See ya. Happy New Year.